be in space together.
I like that. Okay. All right. So we were talking about enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
You know, first of all, I didn't understand what you meant by you wanted to communicate your enlightenment, but wait, tell me why it's necessary for you to communicate that. Like, what does it mean? What does enlightenment in your view mean?
For sure. So enlightenment, see, this is why it's so difficult to communicate. This is the funny thing, Ekam, because like before all of this, before I went and you know, went to a Buddhist monastery with the intention of becoming enlightened, I was you know, I was a popular guy. I had lots of friends. I was good at communicating. And then I came back with this thing that I wanted to talk about, wanted to communicate about, and nobody got it. Nobody. Like there was nobody outside of Buddhist monasteries that had any idea what I was trying to talk about.
You know, because look, the way I see it is that look, if you're enlightened, what is the point of communicating it?
Well, like, because you have compassion. So like I want to share what I know, and I think that because, like I said, I was a good communicator before, that I should be able to. I should be able to express this. Now, I don't have to, like, and it's not that. What?
Have you ever heard of once you are sure, you become empty?
Yes.
So then,
I mean, I haven't heard that exactly, but that sentence makes sense.
Yeah, like exactly. So if you're sure,
I am sure.
You are sure, then you're empty. Sure. Exactly.
Then I'm empty. But but this, you're not complete. You're not empty per se. Like,
well, you're empty. Like we're talking about a certain type of empty, right? We're not talking about an empty of material. We're not talking about that. Like,
well, you're not empty of compassion and like the sort of the desire to help.
Exactly. Yeah. So you want to help, but then you're sure that you're enlightened.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What define it though? Can't you can't define it?
Of course I can.
How can you define it? Because I don't what type. There's different types of enlightenment, right?
Yes, there's different meanings for that word, but in the sense that I'm talking about, I have like achieved a certain level of knowledge that that makes my suffering, like the suffering that I can experience, minimal.
Okay, but
compared to the possible suffering that can be experienced.
Okay, but that doesn't like necessarily mean you're enlightened. Just enlightened, just because you have a different sense, or let's say a sixth sense of the world.
It's a knowledge though. It's an understanding.
It is a knowledge. It is an understanding.
Yeah.
But this understanding, can you say it's like a sense that you've come to understand over time, over a period of time, like a wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, it can be expressed. Like I can tell you what it is that I've understood.
Okay.
But the fact is that you can't, like, it's a very rare person that could get to it by just hearing it articulated. Actually, it does happen. But most people actually need to practice meditation, lots of meditation. And I needed to practice lots of meditation. But the core of it is just some basic principles about reality. One is that all conditioned things are impermanent.
All conditions and things are impermanent?
Yes, all conditioned things. So everything that has come into being will cease. Like it's conditioned, constructed, and it will eventually be gone.
Yeah, I've already come to understand that because look, I meditate, I understand Gurbani.
Yeah.
Right? Our body is just dirt.
Yeah.
Right? It's nothing more than that, nothing less. That's why everything that we have right now in this world that is material is obviously gonna, disappear.
So what I was going through are the three, what they're called the three marks or characteristics of conditioned existence. The second one is that they're unsatisfactory. So if you everything that exists, if you cling to it, if you attach yourself to it, you suffer. So That's why it's unsatisfactory. It's bound with suffering. Existence well, I mean,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
yeah.
So if you become attached to some, what we can call it material, because it is material.
Desiring for material and clinging to material.
Clinging to material, yes.
Yeah, you suffer if you do that.
Exactly.
So that's
exactly.
why
That's very true.
It's all unsatisfactory. Yeah. So that's two. And then the third one is that ultimately there is nothing that can rightly be called a self.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because all conditioned things, everything that we think of as a self is a conditioned impermanent thing.
Yeah. That's
so
correct.
how can something impermanent be a self, right? To truly be a self, to be me, to be mine, it would be something permanent.
Yeah, exactly.
And there is nothing in conditioned existence that is that. So ultimately nothing can truly
but the question is, do you live by those three rules, those three golden rules? Like if you don't live by them, right? Let's say you are attached, which we are, which is allowed, because obviously we need certain things to survive. We need food to survive. Yeah, obviously we're going to be attached with it because it's necessary for our survival.
And here's the thing too. Let me tell you. So basically what I think that I've achieved, and so that I would consider myself having reached the first stage of enlightenment, is three things that are no longer in me, that are in ordinary people. One of them is the identity view, the belief in the self, right? So that's cut off. There's no more possibility for me to believe in that, right?
Believe in, sorry, what? I didn't understand.
The belief in your own identity.
Yeah.
Belief in the self.
Yes. Right.
So
the self doesn't exist. Like, overall, if we look at it, self, there is no self.
Right.
Yeah,
it's an illusion.
There's only one.
So yeah, and there's three of them. The second one, or another one, is the belief that you can be liberated by some sort of rituals or external forces or practices. There's no one outside of you. There's no magic thing you can do, no magic river you can bathe in, no magic praying that you can do that will liberate you. It's not rituals and practices like that liberate. So I know that.
Okay, how do you know that? What is it? Some sort of experience that you've gotten to know that? But okay, so how can you? So you're saying that if you ask yourself the question of where these morals came from, then what is the root? What is the root? Because right now, like, I'm listening to you saying stuff like, I'll give an analogy. Like, you're telling me the leaf of the plant, right? But what's the root? Where's the root coming from?
Sorry, I just, because I forgot what one of these was, I had to look it up. So I'll answer that question in 1 second. But the third one is doubt. So doubt about enlightenment is gone. There's no more doubt. There's no more doubt about the truth of this and the path that leads to complete liberation. It's gone. So there's no belief in a self, there's no doubt, and there's no belief that rites and rituals can free you. So yes, talking about the leaves of the bush, but what is the root of it?
Yeah.
So I talked about those three characteristics of existence, right?
Yep.
To know that things are impermanent, therefore they're unsatisfactory, therefore there's no self in it. To understand that is to, okay, so.
But there's look, there's like in our religion, there's a difference between knowing and doing, right? So if you know something is, let's say there's going to be an attack, right? If you know there's an attack, you know it. But if you prevent it, right, then there is no attack. So you've fixed the problem, like, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can know these things like I do. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying.
Sure.
Liberation, right? But there's like you understand what I'm saying,
I
right?
do.
There's a,
I
there's
do.
a, there's a
So,
difference
but the
between doing it and
yeah.
knowing it.
So let's explain.
It's like eating.
What I'm
It's like
talking
eating.
about is that there's further stages that I will reach, and that's the other thing. It's doubt about the fact that you will reach it as well is 100% gone. So I know I will, right? What it is that that's the first stage. The second
Mhm.
stage, more things start to like you have to continue to develop, and you have to continue to let go and to disengage, detach, and all of that. But the first stage has been reached. It's like um, there's different ways to explain what that's like. It's like there's a fuel line and it's been cut, but there's still a certain amount of fuel in it, and that will inevitably burn itself up.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like no, never mind. It's not like that theory, but there is a theory. So,
Or
but
there's
it's
another
not.
one where it's like actually that's not a good one. Because
Yeah.
that's about I had a metaphor for when you're actually fully enlightened, when you finish the job, when you're so I won't get into terminology and all that, but
So what does happen when
there's
you
four
finish the
stages.
job?
Well, when you finish the job, then there's not a trace of clinging at all to anything in existence.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
you may still eat, but you have absolutely zero desire one way or another. You don't care if you eat or if you don't, but people feed you. For like if you get to that stage, you're probably in a monastery and you probably have people feeding you, but you literally like you are free. You're liberated from the material existence.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean there. And to be
Yeah.
honest, like I've been with someone who's at that stage.
Yeah.
Like I told you how I've done those, tours in the United States. I went with someone who was enlightened, and believe it or not, they were provided with the food. All we did was just go there.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite crazy when you like experience it like you have, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I like I said, I haven't reached that stage, but I have met people who are reputed to have, people who are said to be there, and like I've stayed at their monasteries in Thailand. I've had them come visit the monasteries I was staying at. This person's reputed to be, they call it an arahant in the Buddhist tradition. So that's somebody who's fully liberated. And yep, by the sound of them and the things that happened, like I certainly, I don't have any doubts about the ones that I've met. And I know people who are further along than me, like right here in Canada, Ajahn Sona. I can't say exactly, because when you're a monk, you're not allowed to talk about your own enlightenment. You're not allowed to say, "Well, I'm second stage enlightenment," or "I'm third stage enlightenment,"
exactly.
or
That
"I'm an
that's
arahant,"
what
because
that's what
then it's all about special treatment and all kinds of things, right?
No, but because look, when you acknowledge that you're enlightened,
Yeah.
then it's not enlightenment, right?
No, that's not necessarily true.
Because
It's not recommended by the Buddha, like in for his monks. There's a rule against it. You're not allowed to proclaim your enlightenment.
why is that?
Well, that's the one thing I said about about special treatment, because then you might get people who might lie in order to get special treatment, or you might get too much attention in the monastery, or like you might get like negative. You might get like if you declare that you're enlightened, there might be too many people who want to voice their opinions about that or come and interview you, and it might be problematic in that way. It's the same thing with if you actually have psychic powers or anything like that, you're not allowed to declare them, because they don't want scientists coming into their monastery every day trying to monitor their brains and make them do psychic tricks. That's one of the reasons. The other reason again is they don't want monks who have supernormal powers or claim to have supernormal powers to get special treatment. So they just say,
Okay,
don't
so
talk about it.
let's say you are enlightened. Okay, let's say you are. Let's
Yeah.
say I am.
Yeah.
Where is that enlightenment coming from? Have you ever heard of the term 3-pound universe?
No.
Okay, so our brain has basically like three capacities. One of them is, being able to think of time, right? Because we can, right? You know, are you there?
Think of time? What do you
No,
mean
we
think of
can.
time?
We know we can. No, not think of time. We can acknowledge time.
Yeah.
right? And then obviously connect to material. This is like a 3 pound. I don't know too much about it. I've heard of the term, and we can basically there's three things that we can kind of experience: a timeless state, inside our brain.
Yeah.
So then, like, my question overall comes back to that root. Like, are you saying there's a God or not? No God, or where?
What's the root of enlightenment?
Yeah, like who is enlightening you? Yourself?
That's the thing. No, because like the thing about not not believing that anything external or any sort of a practice has liberating value. None of those things have liberating value. The only thing that can liberate you is yourself. And it's knowledge, it's understanding specifically those three things, that everything's impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. If you truly, deeply, fully understand that, you have no reason to cling to things anymore, because they can't permanently satisfy you. They're not satisfactory. They're not where your ultimate like they're not a satisfactory source of happiness. There's actually a source of happiness that's greater than those things, which is the happiness of liberation, the happiness of detachment.
So exactly, detachment of the material. But
Yeah.
what is beyond that? Like we can't just end off there, right? Like if let's say I'm enlightened, who's enlightening me? I'm enlightening myself by detaching from the material. But why is it necessary for me to detach from the material? And that's because
it's a cause of suffering. And if you don't realize, like if you're not enlightened, if you don't realize that it's a good idea to detach from material, then you have the possibility of experiencing incredible amounts of suffering. And then the idea is that like it's actually delusion, ignorance. It's a lack of understanding that makes people go into experiences like that makes people do that, and that makes people cling at all. Like it's actually ignorance. If you fully understood things, you wouldn't cling anymore.
I understand. I agree with that, but
Yeah.
I just don't understand who's the root of that. Like, what is the root?
Well,
what is it?
Because there is no who. Like that's the third
what
characteristic.
Is what? It's what? Who and what are two different things.
Yeah. So what is the root of what?
Like the true creator. Like what is that? Who invented the term enlightenment?
Well, there again, so you're asking who, but the answer to that is there is no who. There's
okay, so
there's no self anywhere.
What invented enlightenment? That is a question for you to answer.
That's an interesting question. But let's pose it a different way.
If I say who again, please just revert to what, because I'm so used to saying who, because
sure.
I read different texts than you. And
sure. So it's really interesting. So from a Buddhist perspective, like it's not.
And by the way, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah,
the reason I say who is because the Western world doesn't understand what who is. No, what is. So we have to define that as what who is, right? Get what I'm saying? So that's why I'm so used to saying who rather than what, because if I say what, then they're going to be like, well, what is it? And I'm like, well, who is it, right? And they're going to revert to who is it. So I'm just kind of used to, not just me, but many others are used to just saying who is it, right?
Because it's a question of who. When you're arguing about God, you mean?
No, not just God. About what? About what?
Just do a little more to explain for me, because I don't understand why. Like, what would the argument be? What would you guys be?
Well, the argument. Okay, let's say God, or for example, right? Okay. Who is God? Yeah. What is God? What is God? That's the better question. But how people would not understand that question, so that's why we say who is God, right? What is God? Who is God? Is there a God? Right? They've characterized it as a person. So the Western world has kind of they've changed the meaning behind the word, whereas it's what is it?
So they change it to what is God?
No, well, we have to change the definition, so we have to say who is it, and that's why you're saying, well, you've reverted back to who again, right? It's what is it? What is enlightening you, right? That's my question to you. However, I said who, right? I
Yeah.
just said that to you, and the
Yeah.
reason I said that is because the Western world doesn't understand. Well, many people who are atheists, many who do not, believe in their Christian beliefs or their origin or whatever, or something like that. I have to use who. That's the overall. Is that Liam?
You're on TV.
Liam's gonna be famous one day.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't you pose that question to me one more time?
Okay, what is it?
What is it that enlightens you?
Yeah.
It is
No,
the.
what was my question? I forgot. I think I
forget,
believe
what was it? Who?
No. No, it was what is it that enlightens you?
Yeah.
No, that's simple. That's you can answer that easily. I believe it was much harder.
You said who is it that enlightens you?
Yeah, so no, what was it then? What is it that enlightens you?
Okay.
But then that would just be detachment. So.
Well, no, because there's a whole process, right? Like they talk about the eightfold path. So there's a bunch of factors as important elements like effort. You have to make an effort, and mindfulness. You have to be aware, and concentration. You have to bring your mind to a state of stillness. Which when you're still, you're detached, because people only move because they're attached to things. They're attracted to this. There's all these forces acting upon them, or they're repelled by something, right? So that's why everyone's moving around. If you can actually stay still, concentrated, completely still, the mind becomes still, then that's like a temporary state of detachment.
Yeah,
But
no, I understand what detachment is.
process,
I just don't understand
Liam,
what is it that is enlightening you, because obviously there are these things that we live by to be enlightened, but again, what is it that created enlightenment? Yeah, that was my question.
What is it that created enlightenment? So that's
a very good question, by the way.
That is good. So, but let me put it. Let's ask a different question first. So, what is it that created existence? Why is there existence?
Well, so I have a question for you. Prove to me that you exist.
Okay. Before that, let's answer my question, because I have an answer.
No,
and you can believe it or not.
I can answer your question, but the root of that question would be this question. So prove to me that you exist, and then we'll go from existence to your question.
Let's skip that, because we obviously exist. Descartes proved that. I think, therefore I am. That's simple. So let's move on to.
You got it.
Here's something that nobody understands, except for maybe.
Rene Descartes is an absolute genius. If I didn't hear that and somebody posed that question, I would have failed that interview. I'm telling you, if that was an interview, prove to me that you exist. Well, I obviously would have said, well, you're talking to me, that exists. I think, therefore I am, right? That's a very powerful quote.
Okay.
But okay,
let's go way deeper than Descartes. Let's talk about the 12 links in the chain of dependent origination of existence.
Wow. All right, let's go.
Okay. So in order to have existence, in order to have anything exist, according to the Buddhist tradition, you need to have ignorance, first of all.
Ignorance. Ooh, Descartes in your face.
Yeah, well, this is way deeper. This is like, okay, well, how do you prove that with a scientific experiment? But let's continue. Let's continue on. Let's go through the links, and maybe when you see the whole picture, it'll make some sense.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
this is the deepest, most difficult concept in Buddhism.
Do we know that Descartes thought of, this deep, went this deep into the...
Well, he never talked about 12 links in the chain of existence. So.
Oh my God.
Okay, so you've got ignorance, and with ignorance, you have volition. Do you know what volition is?
No, I do not.
Volition is like intention. 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 Yeah. But here you can imagine these things all happening at once, because supposedly they do. It's like once there's this chain, all the links are present, right? But
Yeah.
they do follow sequentially,
Yes.
if you can think of it that way. So then there's
I do.
ignorance.
What is the first link again?
Ignorance.
Ignorance. So you need to have ignorance for the chain to even exist.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, but imagine this. Just imagine this is a experiment in imagination. So you've got ignorance, volition, and then with ignorance and volition, then something called mind dash material, hyphenated word, as if mind and material are a hyphenated word, like they're a related thing. Okay, so you can call it, like, there's different ways to put it, right? Some people even just directly translate it as name and form, but it doesn't matter. What it means is mentality, mind, and materiality. So
the 12 links and chain of existence.
yes, existence, all these. So basically it's the idea that scientists today believe that the physical world is separate from, well, no, they think that the mind exists dependent on material, but the material exists independently. That's the materialist doctrine.
No, they're definitely independent of each other.
Well, from this perspective, the 12 links in the chain, they're dependent. They're a hyphenated word. You need both. You need a existent materiality in order to have mind, and you need mind in order to have the materiality.
So no, but we were sent with material, right? Right? Do you agree with that? Do we need material? Yes, we do.
Well, here's what I'm saying. So we're going back further from whatever, like, probably you're talking about right now being sent. This is the beginning of existence. Like, if you can conceive of a beginning of existence,
I probably can't, but I'll try.
Right. So this is this. So ignorance, volition.
I'm looking at it right now, and it says suffering, faith, joy, rupture, tranquility.
No. Let me do it. Okay. Mind dash material. Okay. That's my translation. I invented it. But the one I've heard is mentality, materiality, whatever you make of that. Okay. Then with mentality, materiality comes into existence the sixfold sense base. So they think of six senses in Buddhism. It's just a way of categorizing the fact that we experience sight, sound, smell, taste, and bodily sensations and thoughts. So mental formations, right? These are considered the six realms of experience, the six senses, if you will, right?
They call it the 12 nidanas.
That's fine. Yes, that's the Pali word. Anyway, so and then with that, you get contact, because when you have a sense base, which means an eye, a working eye, a nose, a mouth, ears, tongue, all that, body.
So you started out with
brain.
Ignorance, and then you had what?
Intention. So also translated as mental formations. Then you have then you have mentality, materiality, mind and matter. Mind and matter come into existence, but they're hyphenated words, so they're considered related.
Consciousness.
Oh, dude, that's a link I forgot. So ignorance, volition, consciousness,
contact, sensation, craving, grasping, becoming, rebirth, old age, and death.
Yes. So, but let me go through what that means. So when you've got senses, consciousness is in there. Okay, consciousness, I believe, comes after
formation.
Comes after formations, which means volition. Okay, same thing. Consciousness and then mentality, materiality with consciousness. So when you have senses, you have contact with the senses. So, and contact is either painful, pleasant, or neutral. Okay, that's feeling. That's the next one.
Did you learn this in your psychology class?
No, No, this is not. This is Buddhist Buddhist psychology. This is
Oh
ancient.
my God.
This is not understood by very many people on the planet Earth, if it even is a real thing. You can doubt that. You know, we come from a very skeptical society. People listening to this are saying, "What the hell are you talking about?" That's
Yeah.
okay, but let's keep going
No,
through it, right?
I agree with this, but I've never heard of ignorance formation. But I believe it's rooted somewhere in our religion, in our text.
Okay.
How I probably haven't uncovered it yet because
Yeah.
I'm not as deep as others are,
Yeah.
but I'm
So
sure it's
yeah. And because the whole point is that we live this conditioned existence, and it involves, so there's the contact, feeling, and then with feeling, because feeling can produce pleasure, right? Feeling can be pleasant, feeling can be painful, and then the act of liking pleasure or disliking pain is the next link, which is craving, right? To like something is a movement towards, a movement to continue that sensation, right? That's
exactly
craving.
and then after that is grasping.
Craving, that means
Acting.
clinging. That grasping, clinging, same thing. It means we become attached to the objects of the world,
So
and
now
we perceive them
you're
as
attaching, you're grasping it.
we perceive them as a self. We perceive them as me and mine, right?
Yeah.
So this social structure that we have that says that this is my computer and that's my car and that's my house and all of that, right? It's all rooted in this fundamental element of our consciousness, of our being, to attach to material things. And that's due to craving, which is due to feeling. You can trace back this chain back to the beginning, right? And what's the beginning is ignorance.
After grasping, then you become. So when you
becoming, what becoming means is
speech, body, and then mind.
The word is, well, no. That's prior. That's prior. That's when you have sixfold sense base and you have a body. That means you have a body, right?
Yeah.
And contact and feeling and all that. But no, becoming, bhava, it also means being. Directly translated, it's being, but it also means becoming. So, and we have a craving for being and becoming. It means we become. Okay, so that's the idea of self. You become a self. You become a me that things are happening to. A me that wants this and that and has this personality.
It says here,
that's becoming.
Karma that determines one's next existence.
Karma means actions. So yes, but the way I described it is what it means. It means you become someone, you become a person, and then you have a desire for future becoming. You want to become a lawyer, or you want to become something, right? Which is not a bad thing. We exist. We live in the world. We have to, like, I want to become a psychologist because that's what I'm doing.
Look.
Yeah.
This has all been so simplified in Gurbani. Like,
it's simple. It's simplified in Buddhism too. But this is an expansion. This is a zooming in and looking at all of that. So it's simple in Buddhism too. Because
if you follow the 3 golden rules of help humanity, earn an honest living, and meditate, like, don't you think all of these can fall under there?
Well, that's too zoomed out, because that's not explaining what it is. That's like the core idea is, so the simplest explanation, the simplest
you can use the core, but then have a zoomed out version of that.
Sure, yeah, of course. There's all different levels. Well, there's all different levels that you teach at depending on who you're teaching, right? But so the most simple statement of the Buddhist teachings, like they say, so what do you teach? The most simple he ever put it is, I teach suffering and the end of suffering.
That's a very good way to put it.
Yeah, that is the core. So all these things, it's all talking about one thing. So suffering and the end of suffering contains the 12 links. You don't need to know the 12 links to be liberated. You don't need to know it. But I'm a very intellectual person. I like playing with these ideas, right?
So you've memorized the 12 links?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, this is my world. Like, I live in this stuff, and I would really love to be able to express it. I'm very happy to be having this conversation with you, Ekam. This is actually why I started this podcast. Everything else has been peripheral, has been building up to me talking about this.
Exactly. No, I'm glad we had this conversation because honestly, I believe that you wouldn't be here if you hadn't talked to me that day in that aisle 15 or something. Oh my God. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
That was a manipulation of time, events that got us to this moment here, which is quite crazy if you think about it. But
yeah, it was just in passing. I was walking by you. I said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a podcast?
yeah, I was like, oh, I would be down. But
you're like, yeah. Why, you got a setup?
No, to be honest,
yeah,
just 2 days before that, you know, the lottery guy, you know, beside the customer service area.
Yeah.
He asked me. He was listening to a podcast, and he's like, I'm like, oh, yo, I have a podcast. You know, I was just joking around with him. He's like, oh, wait, do you? I'm like, no.
Turned out to be true. Like the next week, right?
four or 5 days later, podcast was on YouTube.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah. You manifested it. You made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, you made it happen. But whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I'm reading it here, and then a consciousness.
So we were at craving, and then clinging, which is grasping on that.
What about the six? Oh yeah, the six senses one as well. The six ayantanas.
Yeah.
Ayantanas.
Yeah. And it's not claiming that we have a sixth sense. It just means the mind. It literally, the mind is what receives the senses, and then we can create mental objects, right? Like we can close our eyes and picture something in our mind. That's just another realm of experience.
We can hear, we can touch, we can feel, we can taste. What's the sixth?
Mind. We can think.
Well,
we can create mental objects. So the mind is like another realm of sensation. You can see things in your mind, or you can hear things in your mind. Just another...
So I want to talk more about the mind now, because I
you can think you can think ideas. You know,
we can think ideas. Yeah. Okay, so about ideas, right? We're told to kill the mind. We're told to kill the mind because the mind is the thing that's driving this craving.
Yeah.
It's the thing that's making us cling to this, right? Because if we didn't have a mind, we wouldn't cling. We wouldn't care about our food. Yeah. We would just exist because.
Well, so you're told that, and I said, well, maybe that's not the best like way to put it for Westerners, because they a lot of them hate themselves, but so they want to kill their mind. They might try to do it with a gun, but what I was saying is
that's what I mean. That's what I mean by who and what. That's actually a perfect analogy. That's like saying, well, you got to kill your mind. We'll just shoot ourselves. That's what I don't want to do, but we have to put it a specific way for them, and it overall manipulates the meaning, which ends up destroying relations and all that, whatever, meanings and relations. So yeah.
What I was going to say is that at one point, now, because the Buddha, he taught in a million different ways, and it was all dependent on his hearer. He was a genius at communicating, and he could look right into a person and see exactly what they needed to hear, and he would say it to them. And so to one listener, he said, you need to kill your mother and your father. And he's like, what do you mean by that? And I think he was saying that you need to kill, and he said someone else too or something. But it was greed, hate, and delusion that you need to kill. Greed, hate, and delusion. If you kill greed, hate, and delusion, then you're enlightened.
It's a great way to put it, because if you're not delusional, then you're not really.
That's probably the mind that they're talking about in your
text. It is the mind. So back to what I'm saying. So you got to kill your mind, right? The Maya, we call it Maya. Right. And
Maya. Honestly, I think that word is in my texts too, because it's the same country. It's India. It means illusion, like
Sanskrit,
illusory existence. Yeah.
I'll tell you the exact Bani line. But what is killing the mind, right? First off, we need to know what the mind is before we can kill it. Without knowing a thing, how can anyone work on it? That's a great point.
Right, and that's the element of it being knowledge that liberates you. You have to understand it.
Exactly, knowledge. Yeah. So that's what Gurbani is doing. It's providing us with the knowledge, And then you gotta, if you really a scientist or whatever, to be honest, then you're gonna probably not believe it, because scientists basically only use like 3 senses, right?
Yeah.
They see, they hear, well,
Yeah.
not really even hearing, or what they can feel or touch.
Yeah.
So that's what really pisses me off, is because I don't know, they just don't really use a lot of logic. Like what where did you get what's right and wrong? That's a really strong point, right? Can you
Science,
prove to me?
science is an incredibly, incredibly powerful tool, and I'm studying psychology and I'm
It
learning.
is. It is. It is. It's a very powerful tool up to a
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Up to a
that's
point.
true. That is true. And so, like this stuff, and one of the things is that when I get into doing research, I want to actually see how much of what I'm saying right now and how much, of what I consider to be knowledge that I got from the Buddhist tradition can be verified scientifically, and what can't. I'd like to reconcile the two worlds as much as I can, because science is ruling the Western world. So, but there's some things that, and there's another thing besides science that's called rationalism, that believes that you can figure things out by what's called first principles. So you can by using logic and reason figure out things about reality without actually empirically measuring things in the empirical method.
Exactly. But that's Gurbani. It's using logic.
Yeah. And
It's
Buddhism is
using
even
logic.
beyond logic. Probably Gurbani is beyond logic too, because they talk about, probably in meditation, you directly experience things. You directly experience facts about the reality of the workings of your own mind, and therefore you
Yeah,
get liberated through doing that.
Kellan, I'm glad you brought up this point. In
Yeah,
Gurbani, how many analogies, like the ocean has so many secrets itself that it can explain the entire definition of enlightenment.
yeah.
It's
If you're talking about the
actually
use of
crazy.
imagery like the ocean and stuff to describe
But like
spiritual
we can
concepts.
come to conclude that our senses that we've been given are a tool to understand, right? Like, okay, but honestly, if we go even beyond that, why, like, if we are enlightened, were we ever enlightened before we were born?
No.
Were
It
we?
starts with ignorance, remember? Ignorance is the beginning of it all. And so to come into being is to be ignorant. And then
What do you mean by ignorant? Why
you
do?
don't understand something. Delusion is present from the very beginning. And so to dispel delusion,
Why don't you understand something?
because you wouldn't be doing existence if you had that liberating knowledge, the enlightenment.
So what about when you die? What about when you're dead? What about when you are dead? That doesn't mean that you don't exist, because look, when you're ignorant, right? When you're ignorant, right? Ignorance, when it's existence, when you exist, and if you don't exist, then where is ignorance? Does that
Well,
mean
yeah,
you're
no,
in a,
there's no ignorance if you don't exist.
exactly? So, but what is death then?
What is death? That's a good question.
Silence.
Do you think it's an annihilation?
I
No,
don't think
you
that.
don't.
Okay. So I'm going to come from a religious perspective, Sikh perspective.
Yeah.
When the human body dies, it is judged based on the karma. In the court,
Do you mean
of
that the soul is judged? The person is
well,
judged?
the actions of the person.
Yeah. It's not the body's judged.
Well,
Okay, I get it.
whatever.
Yeah, the person's
You get it. You
judged
get it.
for what they did with their body.
The soul is judged based on the things that it did in
Yeah.
the material world. Was it attached? Was what types of things? So in Gurbani, there's a line: God's angels are constantly watching you. They're watching me. I can't see them. They're probably in here. Like, holy shit,
Yeah.
right? They're like, oh my God, Ekam's talking about us. Holy shit. Right? They're personally assigned agents, and they are there to monitor you and see your actions and record your actions. So when the calling day comes, when you're dead and you're in the court of the Dharamraja, which is the judge, whether who decides whether or not you know get to be enlightened, I guess, or the one or be a part of the one.
Yeah.
So yeah, they keep a whole record of whether or not you've done good in the world. So that's where these three golden rules come in. Help humanity, meditate, and because meditation helps for you to, become detached, right? It helps you detach from the material, and that's what meditation comes in handy, where it comes in handy. And help the world, help humanity, earn an honest living. So
Yeah.
don't.
So there's higher teachings and lower teachings too, though, right? Because people are at different stages of development and understanding, right? So
Exactly.
there's some people that only really need to know that you do good to others and make a good living, etc. But then,
But there really isn't much more meaning needed. You like, if I'm a person that's way more educated than you,
mhm.
right? And you are significantly less educated than me, will you be able to understand these three things that I said to you? And will I be able to understand the three things that are said to me or told to me? Yes, I will, obviously, because I'm the educated person. But will you? Yes, you will, because they're super common, right? You know English, you know what these things mean, right? We're taught from basically when we're born.
Yeah, you could say that those things would lead people in the right direction, but they wouldn't liberate them. They would lead them towards maybe being able to gain greater understanding and to
Okay,
be
so
liberated.
again, liberation doesn't have to necessarily be, you don't necessarily, let me rephrase, you don't have to necessarily be liberated while you're alive. Do we know what's beyond death? No, we don't. That's the thing.
Yeah, but it's a matter of like if you become liberated, then you're safer than if you don't. Because if you're not, if you don't have that wisdom, that understanding, then you can fall into bad states.
Not necessarily. If you live by the three rules that I just said,
Yeah.
or well, Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, the ones I'm trying to explain right now, there's no not there's it's not necessary for you to become liberated. What if you are liberated? What if that is the liberation that you need?
Well, here's
right?
but here's the
Because look, you meditate, right? You help humanity, right? You serve humanity, and you earn an honest living. You're not hurting anyone, right? At least
yeah.
you're trying, right?
So
that's what a Sikh is. A Sikh tries. He's a
from
learner.
the Buddhist perspective, the explanation of that is that if that's all that people are taking, like if that's all that people are understanding and doing, then you will lead them towards happiness and towards peace, and it'll be long lasting. He says it's definitely, it's definitely favorable for them to do that. But because conditioned existence is impermanent, even if they like, let's go ahead, because Buddhism has reincarnation and it has other existences, and it's all endless potentially, right? So you could go to some great heavenly state for a long time, but because all conditioned existence, it doesn't matter if it's heaven or somewhere else, you go somewhere good, you're safe there, but ultimately that condition of existence will come to an end, and then
I'm saying that there would be no condition, because if you do it honestly, look, I said honest living, right? You wouldn't come across the thought that it's me doing this. You wouldn't be there. There would be no ego. It would be all selfless. That's why they say selfless service, right? Selfless service, volunteer. All the gurdwaras, all the temples, have selfless service. People might say, "Oh, I did that seva. Don't worry, it's all good. I helped you." There's I in there, right? There's me in there. I did it. No, it was the one who made me do that, right? He gave me the willpower, the strength to perform those tasks. So I thank him, right? In our Gurbani, it says, I'll translate it in English. When the clothes are soiled and stained by urine, soap can only wash them clean. But when the intellect is stained and polluted by sin, it can only be cleansed by the love of the name. Virtue and vice do not come by mere words, actions repeated over and over again and engraved on the soul. You shall harvest what you plant. There you go. That's karma right there.
Yeah, it is.
So by the hukam of God's command, we come and go in reincarnation.
Yeah, exactly.
It says
Well,
that.
that's all right. But what I'm saying, like, I really think that to actually be liberated, to actually like realize, like, the thing is that the idea of those links of the chain and there being craving and clinging and becoming, being, there is the thought that there is me, myself, etc., the ego, that exists in everyone unless they break that chain. And there's only
Exactly.
there's only one weak link in that chain. There's only one place to break it, and that's between feeling and craving. You have to stop craving in order to awaken and break
But
that chain.
there's a way. So meditation helps with
Exactly,
that.
exactly.
So
But
then
it's not easy either.
that comes in the three golden rules, right? Doesn't it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It'll lead people
It points
towards it.
back to the zoomed out version of the rules. And I'm not saying it from like a egotistical perspective. I'm just saying it like, if you're dumb, you can use that. If you're smart,
That's what I mean. Oh, so, and here's another way to look at it. This is what I'm trying to explain, that yes, that'll put you on a good path, on the path, if you will, right?
Yeah.
But so the path is progressive as well. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so it starts with right speech and action and right livelihood. Those are the first three factors of the eightfold path that leads to liberation. So that's what I'm saying. It's like you'll put people on the path that way. It's a good direction, but like ultimately, if they want to be liberated, they have to go through the further stages. So you got right livelihood, and then you need to, then there's another group of three factors, which is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And that's the meditation that you're talking about. So yes, they're doing it, but you know that certain people don't have the capacity to understand. They might be in your Sikh tradition, but they don't understand, right?
Well, there's
They might even
like
do the practice.
when we look at liberation, there's
Yeah.
kind of two important ways we base them off of.
Yeah.
The first one is realization of ultimate reality, a real enlightenment of, I believe it's called the Jannah. I don't know the real. I don't even think that's the word, but you know, ultimate realization of reality.
Yeah.
Right. Do you agree with that? Right.
That's what you're saying. There's another form of enlightenment, another form of liberation.
No, there's it's a mukti, which is liberation. You know, we kind of have two concepts of it.
Yeah, and one of them is that full understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the other one?
But do you guys, I have a question for you. Does Buddhism have this?
Yes. So what's the other one? Because I'm going to tell you if it's just like Buddhism. Just tell me what's the other mukti. The other way to mukti.
God, I need to pull up the Gurbani line of that one.
Because in Buddhism, it's insight and serenity. There's it can be bringing your mind to peace that liberates you, or bringing your mind to understanding. But at the same time, when understanding liberates you, you have peace. And when peace liberates you, you have understanding. So they come to the same end, but you can be liberated through one or the other, kind of.
Okay, so secondly, the first one was ultimate realization of reality. Second, the liberation is not just a friend for all. He even strives for the freedom as well. He no longer lives for himself, he lives for others. Do you understand what that means? So it's not just
he strives for the freedom as well. He strives for liberation as well.
Well, he no longer lives for himself. He lives for others.
Yeah.
He even strives for freedom as well. Like it's basically saying there is no I am, right?
But what I'm saying is that there's, to realize that it takes either, because it takes either the meditation. So if this guy's striving for liberation, which is what it said there, right? He's striving for freedom. Then is he doing that and meditating? Meditation is part of your tradition, right? And so would he be experiencing peace during the meditation?
Well, he would be detaching. Well, if you think about it, if you are meditating and you are striving for the freedom, right? The freedom as in detaching yourself, then wouldn't that be a painful process? Because killing your mind is killing your mind. So you're killing the material that is attached. It's like ripping away everything that you grasp onto over the years, right? So to take away all of that, how much it can hurt you or how much it can impact you, I don't know, because honestly, it's quite difficult. It's like the sensation or feeling of like you can't breathe underwater, because it's like removing everything, right? There is no me. Like my mind is there is no mind. The mind is not circulating thoughts. It's such a, if you conceptually understand what I'm trying to explain, right? The amount of like, I can't explain it. I can't. And we come back to the same point, right? We can't.
No, I agree with you for sure. For sure. That's part of the process. Definitely is not. It's not all like sailing on a calm ocean. That's for sure. There's lots of pain in practice for sure.
Yeah.
But there's the metaphor. The simile is that I just use the metaphor of sailing on a sea, right? So, but if you reach that far shore, if you reach the distant shore that you're traveling to, that's when you're free.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find something. Yeah, that's a great conversation we just had. Wow.
Yeah. This is this is the kind of conversation I want to have. This is the real reason I started this podcast. Everything else was just warming up. It was small talk, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but again, let's take it back to the roots. So do we kind of agree that there is a what to what is the thing that created enlightenment? Because we did divert off into another question, right?
What I was getting at is that it's something that has ignorance present that brings things into existence. And when ignorance is dispelled, when ignorance is gone, then there's no more coming to any state of existence. So it's the absence of something. It's the ending of delusion and ignorance that brings enlightenment. It's the removal of something, not the addition.
So the removal of ignorance that brings enlightenment.
Yeah.
But okay, so what about God?
What about God?
So how can we agree that there is an omniscience that I don't know. You tell me. I obviously think there is. Mm-hmm. But maybe I'm not defining it correctly.
Well, yeah, like you know how Michael Keeling talks about there being an omniscience, a God that is aware of everything, right? Mm-hmm. Aware of everything. I don't.
He had a very good argument.
I don't doubt the possibility. I'm not going to say that omniscience doesn't exist, but and it's interesting too because the Buddha was said to be omniscient.
Okay,
not at all times. Just let me just say he had access to omniscience, which means like he could know things by reflecting on them. He was accessing some omniscience. So there was access to an omniscience. So that if that's what God is, then yeah,
Okay, so God is knowledge.
Like an omniscience, an awareness that pervades everything, maybe you could say.
I don't know about that. See, that's what we have to define.
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead and just tell you the Buddhist story about God.
Okay.
Okay. So there is the story that there is a God, and he is the, like, I wish I could just pull up like the sort of description of him as the overlord, the all-knowing, all-powerful, this and that, right? Now, and he perceives the whole universe. He's like the lord of the whole universe. But the idea is that he like he himself, the God himself, the overlord of everything himself, of the universe, is not free from ignorance, not free of ignorance.
So he is not free of ignorance.
No, because there's, yeah. He,
How do you know? We can't prove that.
Yeah.
Look, a tape. Okay, here's my phone.
Yeah.
I put it on the table.
Mm-hmm.
What is the table on? I mean, what is the phone on?
The table.
What is the table on?
The ground.
What is the ground on?
The world. The universe.
It's crazy. It's on Earth.
But the idea is that
as
long as God is a being, like in Buddhism, they have
we like, look, like when people say like, okay, well, who created God, right? Yeah. God is self-created.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, I'll tell you the Buddhist story. I didn't get into.
That's a great example I just gave, by the way. Like, my phone is on the ground, right? And my table is on the floor. My floor is part of my house. My house is on the ground. What's on the ground? It's the earth. What's holding the earth, right? It's just there.
Yeah. So the actual story, the Buddha story about the Buddha going and speaking with God. Mm-hmm. Okay. God played a role actually in the formation of Buddhism. So Buddha didn't know, like Siddhartha Gautama, when he attained enlightenment, he didn't know if he was going to be able to teach it or if he should teach it. And he is actually inclined towards not teaching because he said, this is too difficult to understand. This is too subtle. I don't think that people are going to understand this. I think I'll just live out the rest of my life in peace, collecting alms. It was very easy in the time in India to wander around with a bowl and have food put into it and to live in peace. And he would have just lived a solitary existence for the rest of his life. And he, in that case, he would have been what's called a silent Buddha. And this comes back to your question about like, why do you need to tell people? And I said, well, ultimately I don't, but if I can communicate it, I would like to. And I think that I might actually have the ability to communicate it. So,
but like I said before,
there's two kinds of Buddhas. One is a silent Buddha.
There's no reason for you to communicate it.
One is a teacher. Well, yeah, because
people like if you were to liberate others,
yeah,
right? Like, let's say if you're liberated and you liberate me because you're liberated,
yeah,
right? So
exactly.
Give me the secret recipe.
Yeah,
right?
I don't get points for doing that.
Wouldn't that necessarily mean you're God?
No, it might mean that I'm enlightened.
It might mean you're enlightened, but then
and it might mean that you become enlightened as a result of things that I said. So here's the thing, like, this is interesting. So compassion and something that for some reason is called loving.
I'm saying you can teach me, but ultimately it's my job to be enlightened. It's
Yeah.
my duty as a citizen.
Right. But the
or
idea
whatever.
is that if I'm capable of teaching you, if I'm capable of it, then why shouldn't I? With the compassionate thing to do, the kind thing to do would be to
Exactly.
teach
No,
you, because
that's what
it
Gurbani
would be
does.
to your benefit.
That's what Gurbani does. But
Yeah.
it's only when a child can only has a certain threshold.
Yeah.
Right. You can't put a kindergartner in a grade 12 classroom.
Exactly.
You won't be able to answer those questions. You
That's what I mean.
can't put a 5th grader in a university course.
Right.
Because he doesn't contain that certain amount of threshold. So it ultimately comes to the point of, are you able to like establish a certain level of intelligence in the
Right.
person?
And
Are
different
you able
people
to like, explain that?
have different abilities to teach, or no ability to teach. There are enlightened people in the world right now who have no ability to teach and stay silent most of the time. And then there's people who have the ability to communicate, and that involves knowing a person's level, being able to determine the person's level.
There's certain things like do we know what liberation is? We do. We can define it, but what the real feeling or whatever it is,
yeah,
right? We don't. So who knows? What if there's some person, somebody talking to you in your ear, in your mind, or your conscious, right?
Yeah. That's called doubt.
Pardon me?
That's called doubt. And remember, I told you my doubt is gone. My doubt is gone because I get it. Like I've seen it. I've literally, I know it.
So then why can't you collectively come to an understanding that there is an omniscience or something that is driving?
Well, because that's like what I'm trying to say.
Like everything is so precise, Kellan. Everything is so precise. Look at everything. Just
yeah, but it's very clear to me that all of existence is like it starts with that ignorance. So it's desire. It's desire based. The entire universe.
Desire of who? Who desired it?
That omniscience, and then
Exactly.
and then every
I got
existent,
him to say it, ladies and gentlemen.
every existent individual. Well, no, I'm not. I told you already. I don't deny that omniscience exists.
Well, yeah,
but I'm saying that it's not free from ignorance.
You said you didn't deny the possibility. You just agreed to it.
Sure, that's fine. I'll say that it does, because like in my tradition it does, and I'm trying to tell you that. I'm trying to say that when the newly awakened Buddha was sitting under the tree that he attained enlightenment under, he decided, I'm not going to teach this. That thought went into his mind, and then the all-knowing, all-powerful one said to Buddha, "Hey, I saw what just happened. Like I know that you just had an enlightenment, that you just became enlightened. Teach that to people. I see that you're inclining towards not teaching it. Teach it. There are those with little dust in their eyes who will understand." And that's what God said to Buddha. And so Buddha taught the Dhamma.
There's similar stories in Sikh religion, Sikh Sakhis, which are, real life events, stories that have been passed down. Very similar. Exactly. The Bhagats, the people that are enlightened have been sent to this universe, this world, this specific planet for us to be taught, for us to be given the knowledge that there is an omniscience, to question, right? And it's prevalent, but again, people are ignorant. They use only some of the senses, 3, maybe 2, maybe even 4, but not all of them. Maybe even 1, right? Because you could be deaf, right? But a deaf person is probably more inclined to be liberated than a person that's not deaf. So that's a very, very deep conversation we just had. There's an article here by Frank Turek. I don't know if you know him.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so this is kind of the overall definition he's come up with. So God is spaceless because it created space, timeless because it created time, immaterial because it created matter, powerful because it created out of nothing, intelligent because the creation event and the universe was precisely designed, personal because it made a choice to convert a state of nothing into something. Impersonal forces don't make choices.
So, do you remember when I was talking about enlightenment and like the first stage of enlightenment, where you stop believing that rites and rituals and external forces can liberate you?
External forces, what are you saying? Are you saying religions or?
Well, no, just anything outside of yourself. So the power to become liberated is entirely in your own hands.
Okay, so what if, well, this is analogy, another analogy. What
Yeah.
if God is this ocean and these religions are ultimately, well, they are ultimately are just rivers flowing into this one ocean?
Like, here's the thing too. If we can come to agree that God